So let's go to that home brewing time and pre-commercial and everything like that. It was a passion project. What were the situations that kind of aligned to you when you're like, I want to step up from home brewing to really start scaling this out?
It mainly went, I think the biggest catalyst was I was working in, I guess you would call it restoration or historic design build. It was a company called South Bend down in Maryland. I'd gotten my associate's degree at York Technical Institute over here for drafting and technology. Had been building my whole life as a kid, working with my dad construction. So I'd gotten a job for a landscape design build company as well as a really nice company that did historic design build and timber frame, much like you see here. And, loved it. But in '08, housing crash, market crash, there's a lot of stuff going on. And, my boss at the time looked at me and was like, hey, man, he goes, these projects just aren't happening like they used to. I know you're into this beer thing. You might want to check it out. Almost like I don't know if we're going to be in business. It was a stark contrast working on multi-million-dollar projects to hear like all of a sudden the business might not be there or was getting put on hold or whatever. So that kind of was a push or a nudge in that direction. And, me being the person that I am, I always wanted my own thing, you know what I mean? Or kind of, be at the helm, so to speak. And I'm also the type of personality that once I latch onto something, you know what I mean? You just see it through to the end, good, bad, or indifferent. So that was kind of the kickoff or catalyst into that. And I had built, the typical, back in the day, they called it the Brutus 10, but it was 3 15-gallon kegels, much like Sam Calagione, that system that, he references, but it was, I built my own version with pumps and, temperature controllers and stuff like that. And, was doing pretty good beer in a little 10-gallon system, and, of course you get the encouragement from friends and families and fools and all this other stuff. And, that's where I kind of made that jump off and, then went scrambling just because of the bootstrap nature of it, trying to find equipment that was affordable. And ended up building my own equipment essentially. I've always kind of fabricated and welded and did different stuff. So I found some old Grundy tanks from a guy named Scott, who in the brewing industry they refer to as the dude. Anyway, so long story short, you'd go and you'd see 3 brew houses and 3 Pratt & Whitney aircraft motors sitting in a warehouse, and Scott just dealt in it all, and so I picked up these 4 Grundy tanks out of an old pub in Virginia. They were originally from England, came to Virginia, and then somehow ended up with him. Used 2 as like fermentation combo tanks, and then cut the other 2 up as a mash tun in the kettle and kind of fabricated my own thing. And to the best of my knowledge, that brew house is still making beer, crazy enough. That Frankenstein, Kyle Neuheimer at Oakbrook in Reading, he had purchased it, and as last I know, he's still actually making beer on it, which is wild that that's still in existence. Which is pretty rad. I mean, it's awesome that it helps somebody out.
True testament to your craft.
Yeah, yeah.